Thank you. Welcome to Poetry from Pulitzer to Performance, featuring Philip Levine and Ken Arkine. My name is Shawn Wong. I'm a professor of English and the MC this evening. For the last 5 years, the University of Washington has selected a common book and given it to the incoming freshmen as a way to introduce them to their new academic community and to use a text as a basis for them to create connections with one another and to basically tell them they have to read now that they're in college. Past books have covered big themes like global health, the environment, immigration, and racial identity. This year, the UW went in a different direction. Instead of choosing a theme, we chose a genre. And instead of buying an already published book, we made our own. And so, in a nutshell, that's how we wound up with You Are Never Where You Are, a small book of poems. Why would a research university choose poetry? I'm actually not going to answer that question. I'm going to let our Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Academic Affairs, Dr. Ed Taylor, answer that question.
Trained such as I am as a faculty member here, I'm not going to answer the question either, but I'm going to pose another question. Because it would be just as fair to ask, why wouldn't a research university choose poetry as a form of commonality, as a way to bring us together and to inspire our imagination? In fact, our mission statement says discovery is at the heart of this university, and you'll see at the end of this evening that this genre, this poetry, that these two poets are indeed all about discovery and imagination. UW alum and poet Richard Hugo once said, "Writing is a way of saying you and the world have a chance." And he's right. Reading and writing poetry takes persistence, takes imagination, takes courage, requires engaging with language, nuance, and ambiguity in ways different than our everyday lives. So no matter what the discipline, no matter where you come from, whether it's computer science, medicine, geography, this is a genre, this is a moment that is about imagination. It's about finding our voice. Poetry isn't the only way to get at imagination and creativity. We were talking to our students today with our two poets, and I asked what would make this night and what would make this book successful, and they said, inspire some compassion, inspire some imagination, to move us a little bit, and I hope that we do that. So thank you for coming. Enjoy the evening.
Our first poet tonight is Ken Arkine. Ken Arkine is a performance poet, or some of you might use the term slam poet. Why performance poetry in the Common Book? One purpose of this book is to show a diverse range and style of work. This is about as far away from Keats as you can get. Speaking of being a slight distance away from Keats, poet Bob Holman published a poem titled, "Why Slam Causes Pain and is a Good Thing." He said slam is democratizing. It also has a gravity that pulls people in, makes them look and hear the intricate layers that are there in the poem and in the voice. Ken Arkine is a National Poetry Slam champion, New Yorican Poets Cafe Grand Slam champion, and full-time touring artist who has performed in almost all of the lower 48 states. Hawaii, well, I guess that would be 49, Canada, and at more than 200 colleges and universities. With Panama Soweto, he is one half of the dynamic duo, the nation's most highly booked spoken word act. Arkine has been featured in the documentary Spit and Slam Planet, and Borders.com's Open Door Poetry Series alongside U.S. Poet Laureate Billy Collins. A regular fixture in the Denver music scene, Arkind is the only poet signed to Hot Congress Records. Arkind's first collection of poetry, I Know Why Georgia Turner Waited by the Train Tracks, will be available this summer from Penmanship Books. He is currently the executive director and head coach for the Denver Minor Disturbance Poetry Project, an independent literary arts organization dedicated to helping Colorado youth find their voices through poetry and performance. Arkind's poem, An Experiment in Noise in A-sharp major, is featured in our common book and was the inspiration for a flash mob here on campus. How many poets can say their work inspired a flash mob? Please welcome Ken Arkind.
It's an honor to be here with Mr. Levine. I'm very excited about that. Man, you guys are good looking. You know, you can make some noise if you want, you know? That's what I'm talking about. So I get to travel a lot, so a lot of my poems are about travel. And I'm also into personification at the workshop today. If any of you guys were there, I had a conversation about that. I have conversations with complete inanimate objects all the time. Sometimes that includes people. And I write them love poems or angry poems. And this is a love poem for the city of Los Angeles. Do we have anybody from LA here? Okay, tell me if I get it right. She's a great one-night stand. I wouldn't always bring her home to meet Mom. If you think it's funny, you can laugh. It's okay. This is called Maggie. Los Angeles, you were the girl that every boy wanted to bring to prom. Except for me. Yet somehow I still found you beneath my windowsill at 4 a.m. in a dress by Prada that you stole off Rodeo Drive. Trying to serenade me between whiskey breaths, you said, "You bastard, how come you don't want to have sex with me?" Because everybody else does. And I said, "Well, because you invented Paris Hilton and the drive-by shooting. And from what I hear, you got a wicked case of hepatitis." And you said, "Fair enough. Fair enough. But would you still dance with me?" And I said, "Okie dokie, pokey, take my hand." And I gripped you deep beneath the valley until Long Beach took its seat next to my liver and Venice its seat next to my heart. And I held Compton in my other hand so that it was as far away from my wallet as it could possibly be. And I looked you in the eyes and I said, "My God, you're beautiful." And you said, "Well, I've had work done." And I said, "I hope Denver doesn't get jealous because I never wrote a poem like this about her." And you said, "Don't stress it. Me and Vegas, we're tight. This won't make it past state lines." And I said, "Oh, Maggie." Can I call you Maggie? You know, you always seem like a Margaret to me, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think Maggie is short for Margaret. So can I call you Maggie? That would really make my day. And you said, "Sure, you friggin' weirdo." And I said, "Oh, Maggie, you're kind of like a hooker with a heart of gold. But actually, you're more like a really big city with a drug problem. But I love you. I love you for your imperfections and your fault lines." It's more for me. I love you for your imperfections and your fault lines. I love you for your endless traffic, the way it gently lulls me to sleep at night, like a lover's breath tickling my ear. It sounds just like... Sounds just like a pig with Tourette's having hate sex with a vacuum cleaner while listening to Little John. Maggie, it's beautiful. And baby, I don't mean to get personal, although I can't help but wonder, why does Hollywood always remind me of a middle-aged drag queen who just stopped trying to be pretty? Like she only takes baths in the water left over from the baptismals of babies who never wanted to be holy in the first place. Beautiful and spent, and no doubt full of some kind of regret that forces her to grit her teeth until they chip and crack like her sidewalks do. And you said, "That's not fair." And I said, "Well, neither are breast implants. But thank you for those anyway." That joke never goes over well at all. There's always like a couple of girls in the front row who are like, "Shut up. A woman's body's a woman's body, you stupid gnome face man. Why don't you go sell some Travelocity, you jerk, you know?" It's okay, I look like a gnome, but I'm the sexiest friggin' gnome in the yard sale, so it's all right, do you, okay? All right, back to the poem. While we're at it, thank you for Ronald Reagan. Thank you for road rage. Thank you for teaching us the most important lesson of the 21st century, which is to never make a sex tape because somebody's gonna end up seeing it. And Maggie, thank you for anorexia. You know, my friend Angela, she really liked that one. And then you said, "Stop messing with my good lighting." And I said, "Well, don't hold my shadow against me. It's just that sometimes your beauty reminds me of a La Cienega car wreck, and I can't help but to stand over your mess and rubberneck. Maggie, tell me, why do you care so much about Anna Nicole Smith? Did you know that they found your DNA beneath Marilyn's fingernails? And by the way, Heath Ledger, he sends his regards. So stop stealing all of our beautiful people and then messing them up with your good taste. And you said, I love you. And I said, stop trying to sell me something. I already know that God lives in California. He works as a makeup artist, using the sidewalk chalk left over from children gunned down in South Central to paint those Technicolor sunsets onto the sky's face that you're so famous for. Using it to cover up all the burn marks still left from the Watts riots. Spends his weekends below I-10 underpasses, sipping Thunderbird and telling governor jokes to the junkies until they laugh so hard that the freeways shake and we all think it's the big one. Maggie, I know these things. Now tell me your secrets, and the kind of stuff that you don't tell all the other boys. Like whether or not that lonely Hollywood sign ever changes location on the hills just to see if the people stuck in morning traffic will finally notice it through all the smog. Or do the tar pits ever feel like they've given up too many of their secrets, just like I do sometimes? Does the 405 straighten itself out late at night to help the drunks get home safely? Or will the Sunset Strip ever spit out all of the people that it swaddled like the tar pits do their secrets? Or will it just continue to pull itself taut to shake off its past like so many broken dreams and empty syringes to try and look good for Beverly Hills as she walks by? Looking like the apocalypse coming down the sidewalk in high heels with legs that go all the way up like redwood trees and inspire forest fires in the hearts of men. Her collagen lips too fake to make good on the realness of her promises. And then you said, stay with me. And I said, I would, but the air here is thick like a bedroom after one night stand on top of sheets that my children have never played upon. In Denver, she's lonesome for her heroes. So I gotta go. But if it's any consolation, baby, you sure can. And then you said, boy, you're a shitty dancer. But let's do it again sometime. Thank you. Greyhound, southeastern Texas, 4:22 a.m. Poor people are like dust. You can sweep us up all you want, but we just settle into another corner when you're not looking. And if gentrification is a broom, then the Greyhound bus line must be the dustpan. Next to me, the 19-year-old straight from boot camp pretends to be asleep. I know he is pretending because he can smell the bathroom too. What light there is glows like an infomercial on a silent television, and the silhouette of every snoring man resembles my father, passed out in his chair at 4 in the morning, arms limp and empty, hanging in the aisle like down telephone lines. The men behind me are talking, their voices muffled, as though hearing front seat conversation from the back of a trunk. Occasionally, the word faggot hits my ears like a speed bump. 3 rows ahead, a woman hits her kid so hard it sounds like one of the tires popped. But the bus keeps driving. Thank you. Colorado's got some crazy politics. We just kind of became a blue state, but just barely. There's this crazy guy who almost won the senatorial race he lost by 7,000 votes. Anyway, this poem starts with a quote by him, and I'm not making this up. This actually happened. I mean, I don't know. We do live in the age of Jersey Shore, so I guess this isn't that hard to believe. But Snooki. So this poem begins with a quote. Homosexuality is a disease, just like alcoholism. Therefore, it can be cured. Yes, it is a choice. Ken Buck, Colorado Republican senatorial nominee and self-proclaimed Christian. The following poem is an open prayer for the soul of Ken Buck. What does the sun do behind the world's back when night falls like the legs of hanged men? Western men only seem to look to where the sun sets, never where it rises, eyes too blinded by gold to see the burn marks it left in its wake. We care so little for the things that we step on. So why is up always thought of as godly? The height of a crucifix is not more important than the earth that birthed its wood. What do you see when you look down to your sons, your daughters? Where does your God actually live? maybe we have been praying in the wrong direction. There is nothing in the sky worth dying for, so why do we spend so much time killing each other over something that we cannot eat? See, I know very little about your idea of Jesus, only of its skill in making holes in the ground. So maybe he has actually been trying to tell you something with all of those banging sounds that you've been making in his name. A crucifix is not a throne. Those are not tree limbs for you to hang your nooses. They are arms spread openly for a reason. Your hands are not those of your saviors. I see no holes in your palms. This makes them shovels, not gun barrels, so plow. We have so many craters to fill. It's time to stop using God's name as an excuse, because it's far too easy to never lift a finger when your hand is nailed to a cross. Thank you. This is called Uncanny Valley. If anybody is involved with robotics, you might understand what that term means. God, you guys are so good looking. This is another city poem. I do that. If you're from any of these cities, know that I love them. That's why I make fun of them. Dallas, Texas is a rodeo where all the bulls are dead, but the cowboys keep riding. Nevada is a sink where constellations go to slit their wrists. Think about it. Downtown Reno still glows with the evidence of the last time Orion felt suicidal. When the Old Sands Casino collapsed in on itself, tourists who had not escaped the building in time were catapulted across the desert like moist Argyle water balloons, their green plastic sun visors buzzing through the air like the wings of horny dragonflies. I hope that Santa Fe frames my mother's heart better than those overpriced nature photos that it loves so much. Boulder is the Santa Fe of Colorado, with less shitty Southwest art and more white people. When the 100-year flood returns, melted glacier water will rush across the Flatirons like God was hawking a loogie through his teeth, and its citizens will ride their yoga mats down the front range like granola surfboards of freedom. Salt Lake City is an apartment building with a spider infestation that's owned by arachnophobics. Only instead of spiders, it's gay people. It's true. There's a huge gay population in Salt Lake City, and it drives the Mormon church crazy. I love it. Anyway, Albuquerque, I promise to hold you until the fire burns out and never complain about your bad breath. Telluride, you made me an alcoholic and you gave my dog cancer. Houston, like Dionysus and the Saxons, I will never go out of my way to meet you. And don't tell Indianapolis, but I was thinking of someone else the whole time. Phoenix has an eating problem. Portland. Portland is Seattle's know-it-all little sister. Who went backpacking across Europe for a semester and came back with an attitude. Spokane is the cousin they never talk about. The one with a drinking problem and lots of bad tattoos. New York is the most popular girl in class, the one you didn't realize had a crush on you until after graduation, and now she's with somebody else. Binghamton, New York is a war vet holding a cardboard sign next to a freeway entrance. Park Street Station in Boston is like my grandmother's house. It smells funny, is full of medical professionals, and it's always 90 degrees even in the wintertime. The worn brick floor looks like the palms of her hands. Some nights, after drinking too much Cambridge, I wind up there, crawling on my hands and knees and apologizing for sins I do not remember committing. Thank you. I would like Natalie to play behind a poem real quick, if you guys are okay with that. Can you try that? While she's setting up, I'll go ahead and read this one. I'll read this short piece. It's about cocaine. I don't like cocaine. It's called Devil's Dandruff. Potato chips are better out east. Fries, hairs, wise, chips, oots, thin salty flakes, devil's dandruff, artery mine shoved into lunch sacks. By the time we had gotten out west, we had forgotten about things like that. but perfected the cheeseburger with the cows we picked up on our way through Texas. Drugs are kind of the same thing. Studio 54 snorted a fat line, coughed, and sent a cloud drifting across the country like a disco ball dust bowl. Crop dusted the breadbasket in a Learjet and platform shoes. Fairy dusted the Castro and caused a couple of earthquakes, but nobody minded until aftershocks hit Hollywood and Natalie Wood bumped her head. Trudged up coast like horny little Spartans to conquer the Northwest, but found that heroin had already opened up a lemonade stand and brought methadone along for security. When the recession hit in the 80s, the white horse headed home, tail between its legs, riding strips of tinfoil like a magic carpet over the vacant skies of the Midwest. By NYC, a nor'easter froze it in its tracks, and it shattered like a broken window in Bushwick. Got a construction job knocking teeth down like old tenements. Cocaine, the kind that came in frocks, not work boots, found asylum in Colorado ski towns. Surviving celebrities could pretend that they were shoveling snow instead of passing out in it. Eventually, it discovered a home up my father's nose, along with several other refugees, including 3 sons, a red Chevy, a couple of my mom's tax refunds, and a piece of his own skull. Thank you. Slow and sweet. This is called When Marvin Left. The paint on the wall is thin. She can see the pattern of wallpaper floating underneath it. The arthritis prevents her from closing her hands that lay face down on the arms of her chair like the unfinished books that they are. She cannot walk on her own. Her knees are the hinges of doors opening the wrong way. The nurse's hands don't fit. Their palms are strangers laying on his side of the bed. The nurse's hands are burglars. Her fingers spread like shards of glass. The nurse's hands are thieves. They drag her away down long hallways, hide her in a different painted room until another comes to steal her away. She is a bookmark, this woman, shuffled between pages without numbers. Thank you. I'm going to read a breakup poem, and then I'm going to read a poem about noise. It's called Delta Flight 193 JFK to Denver. Breakup poem number 7. You know what I mean. It's one of those annoying poems that comes in numbers, too. Okay. 1, I still have naked pictures of you. I want you to know that. I want to start this conversation off right. 2, as I am writing this, the cat that you hate is peeing on the bed. That is what will be waiting for me when I get home instead of you. 3, I keep asking the same questions because I always get drunk right after we talk and I can't remember any of your answers. 4, I could decide not to drink, but you know how I feel about not drinking. 5, I miss your moan. It was one of my 3 favorite things about you. 6, you broke up with me the night before the National Poetry Slam finals. It's really sad how few people in the world understand how crappy that actually is. 7, when you start to cry, I know that you're feeling something which makes me like you again. 8, climbing through endless bodies, sweaty and writhing and inside of each other, I can see not the source of light, just the skin that it's reflecting off of. We find each other, ignore the rest, clinging to each other. The bodies straightened beneath us go slick from sweat like a bowling lane. We make love till I wake up. 9, I keep trying to find out if you cheated on me. 10, I never cheated on you. 11, I think the guy sitting next to me on the plane is sleeping with you. That's why he doesn't like me. 12, so is the stewardess. You guys are going to have a threesome tonight. 13, every time I am not looking directly at you, you are having a threesome. 14, when we talk on the phone, your other hand is holding a penis. 15, the penis is most likely bigger than my penis. 16, all of your previous lovers cheated on you because you made them feel this way. 17, I never cheated on you. 18, I'm sorry I yelled at you. 19, you deserved it. 20, dream. Looking from the outside into my bedroom at my grandparents' house, the one I was always scared to sleep in as a child. The room is dark. I can hear your moan, not the rustle of sheets or bodies slapping together or voices talking, just your moan. I can't move. There is no light, just the open door and your moan. 21, this airplane is not bringing me home. It is simply dropping me off somewhere else. 22, when I get to the apartment, I will look that cat dead in the eye and tell him that he is the reason why mommy left daddy. 23, some of my friends pretend to hate you now. That's why I love my friends. 24, when the plane lands, this will all be my fault. 25, in New York, the sun sets like the sun should set. In Denver, it takes far too long. The glow is unbearable, like the whole sky is covered in sheets, the day threatening to start with or without you. Cool, thank you. This is the poem that was published in the Common Book. It was written originally as a graduation present for several of my students. It's about speaking up for yourself, and it's dedicated to anybody who's ever been told to stop playing with their food and then kept playing with their food, because you're my kind of people. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you to be quiet in this world, young people, and every time they say that, you just get louder and louder and louder until you can't hear them saying that to you anymore. It's called An Experiment in Noise in A-sharp major. This is not a heart. It's a volume knob. You turn it this way when you wish to scream. You turn it this way when you wish to whisper. It is a gift and carries much weight with it. Your chest can feel as heavy as an ocean. There is more than enough silence beneath the surface for you to drown in. Be careful. It is a weapon and can hurt people. Their ears may not be ready for your anthem. So speak with purpose. Sound without shape is static, and you were not born a dead channel. You were born screaming. Does music belong to the instrument or the ears that hear it? If one receives a gift, it belongs to them and not the gift giver. So when you tell somebody your name, does it still belong to you? Branches, violin strings, the wind, a bow. Music notes, hummingbirds, eardrums, flowers, epithet shotguns, Schumann's targets. This is not a heart, it's a volume knob. That makes your veins wires. If your veins are wires, then your limbs are speakers. If your limbs are speakers, then movement is a song. Running song, dancing song, kissing song, fighting song. So choir, many, many choirs, holy, holy little fist, leave the world dancing in your headphone dust, drenched in speaker sweat, covered in eardrum graffiti, and invite them all into your sonic temple. Alone, you are just one word, but together you make a sentence. Together you have purpose. This is not a heart, it's a volume knob. With this you can sing many, many songs. Joy, acceptance, humility, forgiveness, fear, hate, love, 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 love. Remember that last refrain when the waves come, because they will come. They will try and mute you. They will try and drown you with their talking, talking, talking. They will try and sharpen your shoulder blades to convince you to cleave off your wings by shrugging from the weight of them, that the burden was too much for you to carry, that you deserve silence. They will try and deafen you. They will try and deafen you by firing their guns, their guns, their guns, by firing their guns, their guns. Put your guns away. Our weapons in our chest. Your body is an arsenal. Your gut, a foxhole. Your lungs are magazines meant to fire the ammunition of your breath. Your throat is a barrel and your tongue a trigger. Click against the war drum of your jaw and echo the sound, no. No, you will not touch me. No, you will not call me that word. No, I will not move, because a bullet cannot hurt an ocean. And waves are just static atop its depth, and you are louder than this. Bloody experiment in noise, a transmission sent straight through bullhorn of tongue by the soapbox that got lodged in your throat on the day that they told you to swallow your pride, and you are louder than this. You are ruckus. You are opus. So shatter the silence and proclaim yourself. Turn up your volume knob so loudly that they never forget, and hand the world your name like it was a gift. Your spine straighter than a ship's mast, chin held higher than full sail, static crashing like waves breaking against your bow, the bullets of their lips firing, but missing with every shot. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Philip Levine, according to Edward Hirsch in the New York Times Book Review, is a large, ironic Whitman of the industrial heartland and should be considered one of America's quintessentially urban poets. He was born in 1928 to Russian Jewish immigrants in Detroit, a city that inspired much of his writing. Author of 20 collections of poetry, his most recent is News of the World. The Simple Truth won the Pulitzer Prize in 1995. What Work Is won the National Book Award in 1991. David Baker writes, "What Work Is may be one of the most important books of poetry of our time. Poem after poem confronts the terribly damaged conditions of American labor, whose circumstance has perhaps never been more wrecked." Levine is known as the poet of the working class, and he remains dedicated to writing poetry, quote, "for people for whom there is no poetry," unquote. As well as having received 2 National Book Awards, Levine is also the recipient of the National Book Critics Award and the Ruth Lilly Prize. He divides his time between Brooklyn, New York, and Fresno, California. Levine's poem, What Work Is featured in the Common Book. Please help me welcome Philip Levine.
Well, I'd like to thank the people who have brought me here and fed me and been so nice. And wonderful welcome I've had. Wonderful food, wonderful talk. This is a great city for poetry. Rethke, Richard Hugo, David, I'm trying to think of his last name. David Wagner, yeah, it's just I'm old, I forget. You think that's quite fair to have me read one of America's oldest dying poets that I should read after this guy with all this incredible energy and verve? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm too old to take my clothes off. My wife would be horrified if she saw me. Oh, God. But our eyes are so bad, we don't see each other. So, but I enjoyed meeting and hearing my friend, the poet, because he's for real. And he speaks of a world that, will be here after I've gone and while I'm here. And I much admire what he's doing. I don't know what I would have written like if I was born the day he was born. I don't even want to imagine it. I spend half the year in Fresno, California. I don't know if you've ever been there. No, don't go. I mean, the air is... I think that's one of the reasons I can't see my wife, because there's so much pollution that you can't see the end of the block. And the water is poisoned with agricultural crap, pesticides that are created to kill people and let bugs survive, We're very good at that. But anyway, I made that place my home or at least one of my homes, back in 1958. It was a city of about 120,000 there. Now it's this 500,000 spread of, forget it. But it is in a great valley. It's in a great valley, and you have, to the east of you, you have the Sierra Nevadas, which are the tallest mountains in the South 48. And to the west, you have what are called we call them hills. If they were in New York, they'd be called mountains. And when I first moved there, I was always aware of the fact it was a valley and that there were mountains. But as the years passed and the pollution got worse, you began to lose that. And of course, the California that you read about and that you see in the films, except for 5 Easy Pieces and a wonderful boxing movie, Fat City, they're largely filmed in San Francisco or LA, these glamorous cities with a sea coast. Not our valley. Our valley. We don't see the ocean, not ever. But in July and August, when the worst heat seems to rise from the hard clay of this valley, you could be walking through a fig orchard when suddenly the wind cools, and for a moment you get a whiff of salt. And in that moment, you can almost believe something is waiting beyond the Pacheco Pass. Something massive, irrational, and so powerful, even the mountains that rise east of here have no word for it. You probably think I'm nuts saying the mountains have no word for ocean. But if you live here, you begin to believe they know everything. They maintain that huge silence we think of as divine. A silence that grows in autumn when snow falls slowly between the pines and the wind dies to less than a whisper, and you can barely catch your breath because you're thrilled and terrified. You have to remember, this isn't your land. It belongs to no one. Like the sea you once lived beside and thought was yours. Remember the small boats that bobbed out as the waves rode in, and the men who carved a living from it only to find themselves carved down to nothing? Now you say, this is home. So go ahead, worship the mountains as they dissolve in dust. Wait on the wind. Catch a scent of salt. Call it our life. And thank you. Somewhere I have a poem in here about Brooklyn. Now, if I could only think of the name of it, I could probably find it. Here it is. I live in my wife and I live in Brooklyn Heights, which was once called the first suburb of Manhattan, because it wasn't New York then. And you can walk a block from where we live, and you see this promenade, a beautiful walkway. And across the river is Manhattan, with all the towers and everything glamorous and marvelous. From where I'm standing when I'm on the promenade, I can't see the traffic jams. I can't see, the homeless people. I can't see all the crap that we've made of all of our cities. And so it's utterly intoxicating. They come and they make films there. They make ads, for underwear and things like that. If you wear this underwear, you'll have this view of Manhattan. This is called Two Voices, and it is situated on that promenade. Two voices. I heard a voice behind me in the street calling my name. This was not years ago. This was yesterday in Brooklyn, late spring of the new year. The flowers, roses, tulips, mock oranges, pansies, shouting their colors along the promenade. I was on my way to nothing, just ambling along, my head altogether empty on a Saturday morning in my 73rd year. Not altogether empty, for the flowers were in it, and the crowds of kids in bright shirts and sweaters, young kids with their parents in tow. And across the river, there was the city breaking through the haze to call to the heights, to belittle Brooklyn, as it always does. Then my name, Philip, a huge voice, deep and resonant, unfamiliar, or if heard before, heard on radio or television, too sonorous for daily life. So of course, I turned to behold more kids on rollerblades, kids on skateboards, kids on foot. No one especially aware of me. Waiting, awake now as I hadn't been, certain the morning meant more than I'd come looking for. The crowds passed, the sun grew stronger, the day passed into afternoon, and I gave up at last and turned for home, half believing I'd missed something. Let's say I phone you tonight and tell you my little adventure, which came to nothing. What will you think? Not what will you say. You'll say it was an illusion, or you'll say there was a deep need in me to hear that particular voice, or sometimes the voices of the air, all the separate voices in so public a place can unite for a moment to produce Philip or John or Robert or whatever we expect. I don't know what you'll think. I've never known, even when you and I were together, and I'd waken in the false dawn to hear you in the secret voice that was yours, crying out into the dark, a name, not mine. Oh, yes. I swear I won't waste more than 15 minutes looking for the next poem. I once did stand there about 5 minutes looking for this particular poem. And I went through book after book. Fortunately, I don't have many with me today, or I'd probably do it. And then, as I was I thought, to discover the poem, I suddenly realized I'd never finished it. I worked so hard and so long on it, but it still stunk, and so I didn't put it in a book. And I sat there, and the audience didn't understand why I was crying, This is called Of Love and Other Disasters. I think in one of the, maybe it was, I mentioned to someone that I suggested that as a title to another person, and he didn't like it. He said his wife disapproved of it. And so I took it for myself. It's called Of Love and Other Disasters. The punch press operator from up north met the assembler from West Virginia in a bar near the stadium. Friday, late, but too early to go home alone. Neither had anything in mind, so they conversed about the upcoming baseball season, about which neither cared. We could be a couple, he thought. But she was all wrong, way too skinny. For years, he'd had an image of the way a woman should look, and it wasn't her. It wasn't anyone he'd ever known, certainly not his ex-wife, who'd moved back north to live with her high school sweetheart. About killed him. I don't need that shit, he almost said aloud. And then realized she'd been talking to someone, maybe to him, about how she couldn't get her hands right, how the grease ate so deeply into her skin it became a part of her. And she put her hand palm up on the bar and pointed with her cigarette at the deep lines the work had carved. The lifeline, he said. Which one is that? None, she said. And he noticed that her eyes were hazel, flecked with tiny spots of gold, and then embarrassed, looked back at her hand, which seemed tiny and delicate. The fingers yellowed with calluses, but slender and fine. She took a paper napkin off the bar, spit on it, and told him to hold still while she carefully lifted his glasses, leaving him half blind, and wiped something off just above his left cheekbone. There, she said, handing him back his glasses. I got it. And even with his glasses on, what she showed him was nothing he could see, maybe only make-believe. He thought, better get out of here before it's too late. But suspected too late was what he wanted. Yeah, I keep reading from this book. This is my newest book. And I haven't lavished enough affection on it. Oh, there is a poem I want to read, though. It's called During the War. This war is the war in the poem. Of course, we're always at war. I'm horrified by how much war has marred my life, taken people away from me, scared the hell out of me, made me do things I didn't want to do, that I didn't really have the courage to do. I'm sure it's an experience, the longer you live in America, the more you experience this, the horror of the world as it is, not as it has to be. And this is about World War II. And during the war. When my brother came home from war, he carried his left arm in a black sling, but assured us most of it was still there. Spring was late. The trees forgot to leaf out. I stood in a long line, waiting for bread. The woman behind me said it was shameless. Someone as strong as I, still home, still intact, while her Michael was burning to death. Yes, she could feel the fire, could smell his pain all the way from Tarawa, or maybe it was Midway. And he so young, younger than I, who was only 14, taller, more handsome in his white uniform, turning slowly gray, the way unprimed wood grays slowly in the grate when the flames sputter and die. I think I'm going mad, she said when I turned to face her. She placed both hands on my shoulders, kissed each eyelid, hugged me to her breasts, and whispered wetly in my bad ear words I'd never heard before. When I got home, my brother ate the bread, carefully, one slice at a time, until nothing was left but a blank plate. Did you see her, he asked? The woman in hell, Michael's wife? That afternoon, I walked the crowded streets looking for something I couldn't name, something familiar, a face or a voice or less, but not these shards of ash that fell from heaven. This is a poem I published, and a lot of people saw it, and they thought it was really about my surrender or my weariness with life. And I honestly thought it was a poem of triumph. And it shows what I know about my poetry. and it'll be up to you to judge it any way you want. I mean, when you publish a poem or you put it out there or read it aloud, as Ken does, you know, once it goes out there, it's really not quite yours anymore. Burial rites. Even on a rare morning of rain, like this morning, with the low sky hoarding its riches, except for a few mock tears, the hard ground accepts nothing. 6 years ago, I buried my mother's ashes beside a young lilac that's now taller than I, and stuck the stub of a rose bush into her dirt, where, like everything else not human, it thrives. The small blossoms never unfurl. Whatever they know, they keep to themselves until a morning rain or a night wind pares the petals down to nothing. Even the neighbor cat, who shits daily on the paths and then hides deep in the jungle of the weeds, refuses to purr. It's right to end up beside the woman who bore me, to shovel into the dirt whatever's left and leave only a name for someone who wants it. Think of it. My name, no longer a portion of me, no longer inflated or bruised, no longer stewing in a rich compost of memory, or the simpler one of bone, kitty litter, the roots of the eucalyptus I planted back in '73. A tiny me, taking nothing, giving nothing, empty and free at last. Thank you. You're a wonderful audience. You know, I have to give a reading, not, you know, in a few months, and I'd like you to come to it. It's in a library in New York, but no, I can't pay your way. Come for the joy of it. All right, I'm going to close with this poem, which is the title poem of a book I found at that bookstore that someone mentioned, that wonderful... Yeah, the Open Book. They had so many of my books there, and I said, "Oh, they're not selling." They said, "No, we sold most of them." They tried to be kind, you know. This is the title poem of this book, The Mercy. The ship that took my mother to Ellis Island 83 years ago was named the Mercy. She remembers trying to eat a banana without first peeling it, and seeing her first orange in the hands of a young Scot, a seaman, who gave her a bite and wiped her mouth for her with a red bandana and taught her the word, orange, saying it patiently over and over. A long autumn voyage, the days darkening with the black waters calming as night came on, then nothing as far as her eyes could see, and space without limit, rushing off to the corners of creation. She prayed in Russian and Yiddish to find her family in New York. Prayers unheard or misunderstood or perhaps ignored by all the powers that swept the waves of darkness before she woke, that kept the Mercy afloat while smallpox raged among the passengers and crew until the dead were buried at sea with strange prayers in a tongue she could not fathom. The Mercy I read on the yellowing pages of a book I located in a windowless room at the library on 42nd Street. Sat 31 days offshore in quarantine before the passengers disembarked. There, one story ends. Other ships arrived. Tancred out of Glasgow, the Neptune, registered as Danish, Umberto IV. The list goes on for pages. November gives way to winter. The sea pounds this alien shore. Italian miners from Piemonte dig under towns in western Pennsylvania, only to rediscover the same nightmare they left at home. A 9-year-old girl travels all night by train with one suitcase and an orange. She learns that mercy is something you can eat again and again while the juice spills over your chin. You can wipe it away with the back of your hands, and you can never get enough. Thank you.